Hey YouTube fam, welcome back to another episode on Code with Annie. And continuing with the Java programming series, in this episode, we are going to take a look at the looping constructs in Java. So there are two main looping constructs we have. One is the for loop and one is the while do while loop. Okay. Within the for, we have other deviations, which is index-based for loop or the for each loop. Okay. Let me talk in detail about both of these. So in my previous example, if you have seen the video on enumerations, which I suggest you should, because I'm going to explain some of the concepts using that video here. So if you haven't already, I will link it in the description. You can take a look at that. And if you have seen it, we know that designation is an enumeration which holds a list of static values, which will not change. Now, in my main class, if I want to iterate over these designations, I can do that using the index approach, or I can use that using the for each approach. Let's say I want to do it with the index approach. So I'm going to say system.out.println designation dot values, meaning it will return me an array of designations, which is SD1, 2, and 3 in an array. And if I go here and say of I, basically open close square brackets and I, meaning these values will range from I0 to 2, 0, 1, and 2, and it will return me SD1, SD2, and SD3 in each iteration of this for loop. So this is called index-based access, and this for loop basically accomplishes that. The for each loop, on the other hand, is a value-based access, which means when I say system.out.println, I can say designation directly because instead of operating on the ordinal of this enumeration, which is the index 0, 1, and 2, what I'm trying to do is I'm operating on the values itself, which is SD1, SD2, and SD3. That's where your for each loop comes into action. So for each designation in designation.values, the value is directly printed here. Whereas here, you're taking the index and obtaining the corresponding value of that index, which is SD1 for 0, SD2 for 1, and SD3 for 2. Okay, so this is the difference between for each and for loop. Most of the cases in real-time code, you will be looking at for each because that is more easier because you're iterating directly on the value than an index. And this is just a simple for loop in Java. Now, if we scroll down, there are other two looping constructs as well, which are not very frequently used, but yes, they do have their significance in Java. One is while and one is do while. Now, how do they work? For while and do while, you need to have your integer index, right, on which you're operating, the condition on which you're operating, it has to be defined prior to putting it inside this open close parentheses. Because if you observe in for loop and even for the for each loop, you can have the data type defined within the loop itself. Like I'm saying int I equal to 0, right? But for while loop, you cannot do that here. If I say int I less than this, it will show an error because it does not accept that. It has to be defined in prior and it will just have a condition sitting inside the parentheses. In this case, I'm saying is while my value of I is less than 10, keep on printing the value of I. And after I print it, increment the value by 1. So it becomes 1, 2, 3. So it will go from 0 to 9. And the moment it becomes 10, it will exit this loop because this condition is not satisfied. Okay, this is a simple while loop in Java. Now, on the other hand, do while is a slightly enhanced version of it. What I'm trying to say is do open close flower brackets, which is the block of do, and within this, I'm trying to print out the value of I, and then I'm doing I++. Then I'm checking the condition if I is less than 10. So there's a small difference in the way these two are operating, right? This one will check the condition first and perform the code logic, whatever is there. Whereas this one will first perform the code and then it will start checking the condition. So one key difference is, let's say I starts at 0, correct? Now, if I were to run this entire code here, let's say we run all of this. I'm just going to stop, comment all this because this is from the previous example. I'm going to run the main class and I'm going to show you what happens in each of these cases. In this iteration, this one, and these two while and do while loops. Okay, it's compiling. Okay, we have got the value here. Okay. What we've got is SD1, SD2, SD3. This is based on the initial index-based for loop. This is based on the for each loop or enhanced for loop. And this is your while and do while in action 0 to 10, 0 to 9. And then you can see where value of I is 10. Now, how did this get printed? This got printed because your I was initially 0, okay? And up to 0 to 9, it kept incrementing the value of I. This while loop executed first, right? So it increased the value of I one by one till it reached the point 10, I equal to 10, where 10 was less than 10. That condition is false. It'll exit this loop. It'll come to do while. It'll say system.value out.println value of I is 10, which is what you see here. It'll increment it to 11 and then it'll check while 11 is less than 10, which is false. So you can understand the slight difference, right? It'll execute something first and then it'll check the condition. So if you want to have something done before your conditional check happens, you can go with the do while loop. So these are the 4 looping constructs in Java, and hope this video is helpful. If you liked it, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.